Touch the leg. Welcome to Tibet this week. We bring you news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's look at the headlines first. Dharamshala welcomes His Holiness the Dalai Lama back to town. His Holiness the Dalai Lama offers condolences on the demise of Mikhail Gorbachev. Speaker Khenpo Sonam Tenphel attends the 18th General Body Meeting of Tibetan Youth Congress. Sikyong steers Central Tibetan Administration's Europe Strategy Meeting on Tibet in Prague. Representative Thinlay Chukki meets Taiwanese Director General and US Ambassador. Office of Tibet, Taiwan holds prayer service to avert misfortunes inside Tibet. The Tibetan spiritual leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, returned to Dharamshala on Wednesday this week to a warm welcome by the Tibetans, local Indians and tourists following a month-long stay in Leh Ladakh. On his arrival at Gagel Airport from New Delhi, His Holiness was received by the Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile, Khenpo Sonam Tenphel, Acting Sikyong Thalam Dolma Changra, Security Kalun Dolma Geri, and the members of the Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts and Tibetan Youth Congress, among some hundreds of people who have come out of their residences to receive and get a glimpse of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Over an hour journey from Gagel Airport to His Holiness's residence in McLeodganj was filled with colors of joy as the Tibetans and Indians alike stood on the roadside holding ceremonial white scarves and flowers. His Holiness the Dalai Lama expressed his sadness and offered condolences on the passing away of Mikhail Gorbachev, former leader of the Soviet Union and Nobel Peace Laureate. His Holiness in his letter to Gorbachev Foundation recollected their meetings and said that Mikhail Gorbachev was a man of vision and an exemplary statesman who continued to promote peace and reconciliation in the world even after his retirement. Speaker Khenpo Sonam Tenphel led standing committee members of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile attended the opening session of the 18th General Body Meeting of the Tibetan Youth Congress on Saturday last week. Speaker Khenpo Sonam Tenphel spoke on the situation of Tibetans inside and outside of Tibet, changing political dynamics of China, and status of international politics. The speaker also stressed on the need of upholding the momentum of the Tibetan struggle that has been going on for more than 6 decades and applauded the Tibetans in Tibet for their heroism, sacrifices, and their well-planned activism like the White Wednesday movement. The opening ceremony was also attended by Kalun Dolma Geri of the Department of Security, local Indian dignitaries, heads of the NGOs and the participants of the meeting from 45 regional chapters of the Tibetan Youth Congress. Sikyong chaired the one-day Europe Strategy Meeting in Prague, Czech Republic, jointly organized by the Permanent Strategy Committee of the 16th Kashak and the Tibet Bureau Geneva on Sunday last week. The meeting aimed at understanding Europe's evolving geopolitical landscape, discussing the strategic approach to engaging the EU on Tibet from both bilateral and multilateral platforms, and identifying opportunities and challenges for Tibet within the EU. Former Deputy Prime Minister of Czech Republic and founder of Czech Support Tibet, Martin Prusek, Director of Czech-based think tank Synopsis, Dr. Martin Hella, Director of Forum 2000, Jakub Lebel, Board member of Italia Tibet Association Dr. Gunther Kologna, as well as the International Campaign for Tibet Europe Executive Director Wangbo Tetong and Vincent Mitin spoke at the meeting. The meeting was in person and virtually attended by permanent strategy committee members, representatives of offices of Tibet, Brussels, Geneva and London. Sikyong Pembatsring in this week met and interacted with Director of Václav Havel Library, Czech Minister of Culture, Speaker of Chamber of Deputies and Chairman of Tibet Friendship, Czech-based Tibet support groups, Director of Synopsis and Researchers, and attended a luncheon hosted by Senate of Czech Republic.
During all these meetings, Sikyong has very strongly noted why we have to ensure that the narrative of Tibetan independence, the historic Tibetan independence, should be adhered to, especially in terms of ensuring that the countries do not violate the international law by stating that Tibet is part of China, because Tibet historically and also legally is an occupied and unresolved status of a country. Yesterday, during the opening ceremony of the Forum 2000, Sikyong Pembatsring had a brief conversation with the Foreign Minister of Czech Republic, as well as had an opportunity to greet the Prime Minister of Czech Republic. Since then, we have been holding several meetings with different dignitaries from various countries. There was also a parallel meeting of the European foreign ministers. Today, Sikyong Pembatsring is presenting and speaking at the Forum 2000, especially on the issue of human rights situation in Tibet. So these meetings have been very, very important, and I'm very sure that they have played a significant role in ensuring that Tibet can be discussed and taken forward within the European Union, mainly because Czech Republic also currently holds the presidency of the European Union.
Representative Thinlay Chukki, accompanied by UN Advocacy Officer Kaldin Somo from Tibet Bureau Geneva, met with Nicole Su, the Director General of the Thai Bicultural and Economic in Geneva on Thursday last week. The representative and the Director General discussed a wide range of topics, including the worsening human rights situation in Tibet, China's expanding transnational operation, and pervasive influence in the international organizations, as well as the recent developments in Taiwan. The Director General commended the Tibetan community for successful implementation of democratic principles in exile, as well as preservation of its unique culture and tradition. Representative Thinlay Chukki on Wednesday last week met with Ambassador Michelle Taylor, the U.S. Permanent Representative to the UN Human Rights Council at the U.S. Mission in Geneva, to discuss the situation in Tibet. Representative Chukki highlighted the continued religious rights violations of Tibetans in Tibet, including restrictions to access monasteries, destruction of religious worship centers, and Buddhist statues. Ambassador Michelle Taylor empathized with the situation of Tibetans in Tibet and assured continued support of the U.S. The Office of Tibet and the Tibetan community in Taiwan jointly organized a prayer service on Wednesday last week. Representative Kelsang Gyaltsen Bawa highlighted the need of the unity and cooperation amongst Tibetans for a quick resolution of Tibet cause amidst rising disharmony within the Chinese leadership, which led to the deteriorated economy and distrusted citizens, causing unrest countrywide. The 2-hour-long prayer service was held to abate the ongoing natural and artificial calamities inside Tibet, especially the recent COVID surge that saw enhanced restrictions on mobility. The prayer service, attended by 33 devotees, also conducted for the security and well-being of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people. That is all for this week. See you next time and have a great weekend.